So thank you again to all the actors, but also to the director, of course, to Awoye for coming back to the Segal for directing. First, again, thank you for coming all the way over. And when did you arrive in New York?
I arrived Sunday night. Thank you for having me.
Well, it is our honor, and the Penworld Voices Festival actually is dedicated to hear voices from all around the world. It was founded by Salman Rushdie and Paul Auster at the times of the Bush presidency, and they felt very strongly that not enough voices are heard. At that time, and I think it's true even now, 95% of all publications are in the English language, mostly American publications. The 5% left, half of that is French or German, which is supported strongly by the government. So actually what you hear is about 2 or 3 out of 100 voices are from another place. And it is so significant for musicians to hear world music, to see what music is being done and played, to find their own voices and to be inspired by what others do. It's actually vitally important, and we all feel strongly, and so many others do, that it is important to give a space or a spot or to have you here. So it's a great honor, and the work of the Sundance Theatre Festival or from the Lincoln Center's Directors Lab is of course dedicated to this. But Angella, tell us a bit about the play. How did it happen? How did it come into being?
It began really, really simply with somebody asking to borrow my father, and she had a father of her own, and I wondered why she would want to do that. I knew her father, and he was a good guy, and I wondered why she would want to borrow my father. That said, my father is very amazing. So and so I think that was the germ of the idea, was I wanted to know what constituted a father. Was it a person that had that name, or was it the person that performed that function? And I think that maybe that's the germ of the idea. It grew a lot bigger than that, but that was the germ of the idea.
The one was, what was the reason? Why did she want to borrow your father?
I have no idea. She still wants to borrow my father.
Okay, so that inspired us. So yeah, so it is, I think, quite a moment of transition, of roles, or what a father is or is not. What's a son supposed to do? What's a daughter supposed to do? What is studying a PhD, a paper? Is it important? Is it not? Tell us a bit more about the changing world you live in, and report to us.
Oh, wow. That's a big question. That's a big question. I come from, I feel that world trends are sort of going around and around. And I come from a country and a culture that is really a civilization in its own right. But it's one of the first civilizations of the world, which is the African civilization that birthed the whole world. And I think that through circumstance, missionaries and traders and so on, Africans have been compelled to let go of some of these different ideas and philosophies for an idea that will enable them to make some noise on the world stage. But what is happening when I look at it now is it feels like all the things that we believed and that were strong in the African or Ugandan psyche are now very much lauded in the West, and we are busy letting them go. And so it feels like it's a cycle that's going around and around. And I thought that maybe one day, when I listen to young people talk in my country, they could be from anywhere in the world. And I thought that one day they might want to know what Uganda was like, what their grandparents and their aunties used to speak like and think like and wonder. And I sort of want to capture that for them so that they have an archive, something that they can read. So I think that that's probably a roundabout way of answering your question.
No, I really think you did it very successfully to give us an idea about what's on their minds, what they're thinking or they're feeling. in often very funny way, or so some very sad statements of it. Tell us a little bit about your writing. Are you writing on a computer? Or do you type it? How long did it take you to do the play? And is it a continuing practice?
It's really a luxury, but I think about, so this germ of an idea, this girl wanting to borrow my father, probably happened 2 or 3 or 4 years ago. And I think about things for a while until there's some sort of narrative path that I can latch onto. And then I write an outline and I leave it alone for, again, a really long time. And then I get a prompt or an opportunity to sort of sit down and write it, which in this play's case came in the form of the Sundance workshop. And I thought this would be a great place to have 2 weeks to think about this idea that I've been thinking for 2 or 3 years. And so I wrote down a couple of scenes and I worked it out all the way to the end. And then I went to the lab and it began to have a kind of shape. And so this has been happening now for, I want to say 2 years. 2 years to get it to the point that it is at this point. And as I listen to it today, I still see a little bit of holes in it. And so I have to go back and rethink about how I want the world to open up or to form or be shaped even more than it is right now.
Yeah, thank you.
To answer your question, I write in a notebook for years, and then the notebook gets into my computer as notes for writing. There's a folder called notes for writing. And then I write scenes or words or pictures in it, and then eventually I get on a program and I just write the play.
Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about the Sundance Theatre Lab. How did you meet Angella, and where does your play fit in the landscape?
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here today. And isn't it an honor to hear from Angella? She's just an amazing human being, and it is our pleasure at Sundance to support voices like her. I'm here representing a team of people who help writers all over the world to realize their visions. And Angella joins a family of writers who have, over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, over a number of years, received support from a place like Sundance. It takes a whole village of supporters to bring plays to life. And many of the people in this room here, including Janice Perrin, who is a dramaturg who worked closely with Angella at a Sundance Lab, and Ann Catano here from Lincoln Center Directors Lab as well. It's all a part of an ecology of support for artists. For 14 years, Sundance, the theater program part of Sundance, there's the big film festival and a bunch of other laboratories that support filmmakers. For 14 years, we've had an initiative in East Africa where we supported theater makers from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ethiopia, and Burundi. And in 2013, Angella applied to be a part of a Sundance experience that happened on the island of Zanzibar off the coast of Tanzania, excuse me. And she came for 2 weeks. And there were 4 or 5 or 6 projects. Janice was there as well. And since your play was just beginning to find its life, Angella's process was a little different than the others in that we read through it once at the beginning of the residency, and then you went away and wrote and swung in a hammock for a few days reading some research or something. And then we read it again at the very end of the process. As sort of a button on our time in East Africa, we were pleased to support the first ever edition of the Kampala International Theatre Festival, which was a festival that happened last November in Uganda. And Angella's play was one of 10 Sundance-supported plays that were presented at that time. And we were incredibly touched and proud to be a part of that festival. It was all African-led, all African-produced, African-run, and it was just a joy to show up and to sort of experience the plays afresh. So that's how we met Angela, and we continue to make connections between U.S. artists and artists around the world. We've shifted our focus now from East Africa into the Middle East and into North Africa. But we want to continue as alongside of our support for American artists, we want to create a nice, meaningful and dynamic triangle of artistic exchange between artists from East Africa, the U.S., and the MENA region, the Middle East, North Africa. So the work continues.
Thank you so much, and congratulations. Deborah, who organized the festival, also worked here in the U.S. and went back and created something amazing, really an exceptional story, what you created there. This is only the beginning. Awoye, thanks for coming back. And you live here and work in New York. You've also been here at the Segal. So a play like this that was from another reality, as you said. I mean, they are all realities. We, perhaps as modern people, can try to live in different realities, which might be the real difference to our forefathers, that we can switch them. But how was it for you to try to translate this in the reading? Does it resonate? How do you see the play, the style, and how did your actors react?
Yeah, well, I'll say the actors, and some of them are still in here, jumped in kind of both feet, or whichever way is the most dangerous way to jump in. These guys came in, learned a new language in 6 hours, so they were pretty fantastic. I feel like I mean it was so much fun working on it. We just I feel like the thing that was really exciting about it is there were so many themes and ideas that seem so big but so relatable at the same time. And we were talking yesterday about the idea of legacy, the idea of family, the kind of what the promise of the future is, what tradition is, and I feel like what's really exciting, so Angela's writing the play, she's from Uganda, my family's from Ghana, and there's so many things, even between those two countries, that seem like they resonate with each other. I think that kind of collision between the expectation of the parent and the growing of the children in a kind of modern society is always something that's kind of really interesting. And I feel like for the actors too, everybody was able to kind of connect to that, because there's a dream of something, you know? Everybody has a sense of what the possibility of something else could be, and I feel like that's something we could all kind of connect to right away, which was great.
I think the play is very interesting. It has a different feeling of time. You can feel there's a different feeling how to tell a story, and how to communicate, and how to take time for, which is very different. I like it that the Sundance Lab, also, support this way. So I think it was really for us a bit of a moment we could experience that other reality. But was there anything that surprised you, or was in the play where you said, "This is I learned that something from that"?
So interesting. I feel like we had questions about like who is this person who's been gone for so long, and what does it mean for them to come back? And I feel like the surprise of kind of Baaba's return was something that we were talking about whether or not to dramatize that in any way. We decided to leave it to the imagination, because there's something about someone being gone for so long and to come back in such a state. Again, your expectation of what this person is and what they mean to your life, and what does that mean when they come back in this way, I think was really kind of traumatic, but really interesting at the same time, And just in terms of the kind of different kinds of storytelling, I think one of the great things about how Angela opened the play, with the idea of the storytellers coming together to tell a story, our actors are from like 5 different countries, from all over this country, and all coming together to tell a story that is different than their own. So it was great for us to be able to jump into it as we're all separate people with different experience kind of joining together to tell this story. No matter what the story is, no matter what the story came from, we can all kind of dive into it.
Yeah, so it is often it's a story of the missing father, which is also the Obama initiative, and we have other stories, about the missing father, and I think it's a true comment to think about. Christine, I know we have to go out soon, but you also were very strong. You said, we need these plays. There are women writers. We have to have them here. Tell us a bit also why you felt so strongly to include it.
So Frank, we had about, 6 plays picked out for the festival. And Frank told me what they were. And I said, Frank, not one of these plays is by a woman. We need to get some ladies in this festival this year.
Well, they were on our list, yes. But
right, and I knew that the theme for Penn this year was on Africa, and so I knew that there was a lab that Sundance did in East Africa, the theater project there. So I reached out to Deborah Asimwe, and she sent me about 10 amazing plays. I fell in love with so many of them, and but strings particularly, like really, I don't know, it really struck me. It felt very universal, even though it was very specific, to your story in Uganda. But I was just totally charmed by it, and said, "This is an important voice, and we need to bring this to our festival this year." So, and I'm so glad that you're here with us too. So thank you for coming.
So much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we should go to Uganda too someday.
We all should.
Let's go.
One of the reasons why we couldn't do it right away, because we need some funding. We needed to bring people over, and I think once there was the Open Society actually helped us with this, then we could open the door and say, we can actually bring them over and also make it happen. But tell us a bit, how was your reaction to the play, like hearing it here in New York with the actors, and what does it mean to you?
Wow, I began as a writer, really writing to understand things, and then it evolved to writing to amuse my friends. So it was really began as a very private sort of thing, and I remember writing to Awoye and writing to Christine and saying, there are going to be people speaking these things that I was writing alone in my room, and it's a little bit scary. But it was a really wonderful experience. The actors, I was hearing the second half that you heard, I was hearing it for the first time when I came to New York. It was something that was happening in my head, and then the actors took it and I could actually hear it. And on the one hand, it sounded so much better than I thought it would. But on the other hand as well, I just thought, it's so very much Ugandan. I didn't know if people would be able to enter, to access it. But it was, I mean, just from the response of the actors and from Awoye, it seemed that it was able to travel, which was great. It was a great experience for me because I wanted to share a world that is only sometimes seen in a slanted way. And yet there are people that live joyfully these really complicated and layered lives. And that's a different way to see this part of the world.
Yeah, and I think you really created strong an image of the son sitting on the coffin he wants to sell in order to go to university. Meanwhile, the father is missing, someone else tries to help the family, and the daughter who wants to go. So I think it is really quite a broad picture you painted, and I think it will stay with us for a long time. We all hope it will also be produced, it will go on, or your next play, or the third, or the fifth, we will see. But again, thank you for coming, thank you all. Thank you for your work, and
thank you very much.
Hope to see you back. Thank you.